Hello everybody and welcome back. This is part two of today's daily and intraday review. Welcome. Today is March the 7th, 2018. It's almost 12 p.m. EST time here in Toronto. And this video is part of the FibStalker analysis and trading service. Now, as usual, please, I ask you to pause this video and read and accept the disclaimer. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Trading forex carries a high level of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Please read and accept the disclaimer. All right, so let's get back into our markets. Let's look at the main other markets and the other markets. And we'll start from the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar here. As you can see, this market has been very technical lately, and we had a 50% at 97 and 93 that has traded, bringing price now into that first target. That's where we show that profit taking. But that first target, it's also that area is also a target, second target for the inner measure move, which we traced from the swing low here to the highs, and that has been defended, the 98.84, bringing them price into the first and second target. So it's a very clean situation here, very much like the Canadian dollar, US dollar, Canadian dollar, and we know the next measured move is going to be 100.51. Okay, that's the level that we need to watch there for a continuation higher. And when we look at this chart, this is in a big, huge range, so this market could continue higher, and that first and second target of that next measured move will be 101.45 and 101.93. Okay, so very clear and technical situation here for the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. The Canadian dollar, Japanese yen also has respected its promises. This market, you will remember, we mentioned that this market has traded the 50% here, the 81.86, right? And let's see if I can annotate here. This was the level that we see here, the 81.86 here. Lows to highs, price found participation here, pushed below into the area, but the area was respected. The first target was never hit. So once this market showed that you couldn't go higher, well, the only other option was to retest. The only other meaningful and option which is aligned with the path of this resistance would have been a retest of 81.68. So obviously this market could have done everything, but that's the scenario that we're looking for, and that scenario played out. So we are seeing this is a very 50% level. We are seeing some profit taking and even participation on the upside. So what we can see in this market, it's actually participation from this 81.86, and now there are extensions here. So we're going to start looking at potential participation here. There are several patterns that we know that could come into play in this market, and the closest level for me is going to be lows to lows here. So this market could continue higher, potentially into 83.48 and even 84.58, and then we will need to reassess. The market. Okay, Euro, Australian dollar. This market has traded an extension long here, which is what you see from highs to new highs. This has traded, and the first target is very close. This is an extension, so price could also get into the second target. Note also that the external 50% has reached its first target back in December last year, 156.07, and it has a second target that it's 163.91. So but the larger time frame and the small time frame actually justify and support continued move higher into the first target and potentially second target and also the second target of the larger time frame. Okay, now the second target of the inner move here it corresponds to previous highs, so we could get some participation at that level, and even before at the first target 160. So 160 is a safe target for this continued move higher. The euro pound continues its nonsense with a strong participation higher here from within this level, and this market has been moving laterally now forever below resistance 90.26. We'll need to see whether that level now will be retested again. As you can see here, this area that has failed here has failed, and now it's actually kind of holding, so this could be a reason for price to retest the 90.24. But overall, very difficult market to trade, and when that happens, it's better to stay away and concentrate and look at other markets as well. On the daily here, the lows to highs has not held as well, so still not technical, and the reason is that this is a range, so we're not going to look for rationalizations of something that contains a lot of noise inside. So the euro Canadian dollar, it's really pushing very strongly here, and it pushed into the first target there, and now we can see that a number of targets have been reached. So I'm going to remove the levels that never came into play. What came into play here is there are two areas. One is this 145.19, which came into play, progressing to that first target, which lines up with the first target of the inner move, which was indeed as well up 50% level here. Okay, which is traced from lows to the swing high here. This came in play and brought price into the first target, but also into the second target. So we know for this market, like all the markets that are related to Canadian dollar, they're all trading in extensions, and this market is into previous highs, and so it could react and test the next measure move, which is 157.09, and that's what we see here in this market. Okay, so if that comes into play, there could be a good possibility for this market to continue higher. We will see if that's the case. If that level is broken, excuse me, then this market could actually continue lower, but it doesn't seem seeing the pace and the strength of this market, that scenario doesn't seem highly probable. Of course, it's still always possible. So we'll see what happens when and if this market tests the 57.10 area. Euro Japanese yen, with the euro recovering here, we saw a move higher in the last couple of days, and you remember that this market, by trading the 50% 116.74, has also brought price into the first and second target here, and that's then allows us to trace the highs to whatever new highs here, and as you can see, this level, the next measured move, has been defended and respected so far. So what does this put the euro Japanese yen? Well, this is the if this is the next measure move on the weekly time frame and it's respected, then as you can see here, we have targets above, and the targets above are 140.66 for the first target and 145.80 for the second target, which would bring price into previous highs. Okay, so this is an important development here. If this level was broken, then we could look at the 50% from lows to highs. This level is holding, so we could actually it could actually bring price into the first target 140.66 and second target 145.80. All right, so that's what we see here in this market. Euro New Zealand dollar. So Euro New Zealand dollar is retesting that 50% short that found participation early during the year. This is the second time, 170.03. As we can see here, the strength in New Zealand dollar is actually affecting price, which is again respecting the 50% short, and this market could actually, we'll see whether this is going to continue lower from here. And just wanted to verify and look at the sequence of measure move on the 50 on the 4-hour time frame here, and the we can trace an aggressive measure move that has failed already, and that would be confirming this participation on the short side, and that's from highs to new highs that had failed before. And even if we were more defensive here and used the previous highs, as you can see, we had a failure here. So we'll see what happens in this market that seems to be positioned to continue on the downside. The pound versus Australian dollar is correcting laterally here, since it has retested that that high, and I'm not going to attempt to study this market on the smaller time frame because this is a range, so it could actually retest the 76.03 here, which is the level that has been holding in the last few weeks. Okay, the extension long is still in play here, but this market is showing weakness. If it loses the 75.43, then it could actually test the 71.35. Okay, pound versus New Zealand dollar, a similar story here. This market is even weaker, and it has broken already the 50%, and it could be positioned to retest the 178.14. Okay, that's what we're seeing on strength of the New Zealand dollar, but this level, this market has not been technical here. The bulls failed, the bears here failed, and we could make the case that it's the first time that the bears now are holding this level, which would suggest would support the scenario of a continuation lower. Pound versus Canadian dollar, also a strength, actually pushing price right into that second target here, and that was the extension long that we identified back at the end of January here. First target hit, and now second target hit, so this gives us the right to trace the next measure move, which would where we're going to test participation, the 78.20, and this market could continue higher as well. Okay, so we know that the next partial range here is going to be the 83.66. So if the 78.20 trades, that's where we could find participation in this market for a continuation higher. All right, so the level to watch is 78.20 in this market on the daily time frame. Pound versus Japanese yen also had that reaction, and that happened at that 50% long, which is the next measure move here in this sequence of measure move higher. So this is still intact and valid. This market could continue higher here, and if that's the case, that would actually help pricing. We can remove the previous measure move here, the additional, next additional, this one should actually help price into the 160, 56, 50 area, which is the target in case of a continuation higher here in this market. Okay, resistance if the market continues higher will be found initially at the highs to lows here, and we will see if the market can get there. New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar. This market here has continued higher. We had this extension that traded into the first target and second target, and the next measure move from highs to highs has traded and brought price into the first target. This is an extension, so very technical market. We could see a continuation higher and then trade the next extension as this market continues its move higher. Okay, so very technical markets. That's the kind of traces and markets we want to look for when they are very technical. The levels are respected, and it's easy to time these markets. Australian dollar Swiss franc has moved lower, has not retested as we were looking for that 170, 180 yet. We're going to see whether this market is going to give us a last push into the level and then again start a move higher. But as we can see here, there is some profit taking here. We need to see whether now this move higher is actually going to at the strength to retest the previous resistance 73.85. There will be a second test. If that happens, that could be the continuation lower. Australian dollar, Japanese yen. Also, this market moved lower. You remember that in this market we actually have 50%, the 81.38, and we can trace this in different ways due to this spike here. But if we stick with the 81.40 area here, that level has been retested. So this is a range bound market, and now we could actually see a move higher in this market, and that move I have been started already here. Lows to highs as traded, broke price into that first target. The next measure move, lows to highs. As you can see here, has also traded. Okay, so this market is reacting to this 81.40 area in a very technical way. The next target is going to be 83.60 level. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar has failed the longs, if you will remember, and is now trading this 50% short. And the market went into that first target, was not able to. So this is the 50% short that is in play. Went into that first target, but was not capable of reacting strongly enough to go and trade the next 50% short. Okay, the 108.60 has never traded, which means that we're still into this move, and the second target is below. At this point, it's not impossible to see this market continue that move lower into the 105.60 area. The Canadian dollar Swiss franc has reached that area we were looking for, the initial 50% here that failed a number of times, and it failed again. So this market is simply in a range here and could move even lower If it moves higher, we could see this extension short, lows to lows, come into play and bring price down into 71.35. Okay, so this is the level that we want to watch if we have a reaction higher here. The 74.21 is the level that we want to watch for continuation lower. Okay, so I'll update the daily here as well with the same level, and that's the area we have to watch, an extension chart, and that's the level that 24 024 7 sorry 07420. That's the area we want to watch. Euro Swiss franc, euro has been strong here, and there was participation at that 115.80, but yesterday this week move here is actually pushing this price higher. So let's see whether the extensions are in play here, and there is this extension that is in play. That's what's supporting price, and at this point we could be we are in a position where there's a setup that could close that gap, the 119.86, and bring price even higher in this market. Okay, so any retraces in this market could be an opportunity to jump on this move higher, and this market seems to be already be trading in extensions on the 4-hour time frame, and we're going to use the 116.10 as the next area of potential support if this market retraces here, and that would be the area where participation could come in for a continuation higher. Pound versus Swiss franc here, the 131.45 has traded on the downside, was not capable of pushing this price lower into the first target, so something might be holding this price, so some algorithms, professionals, and as always the 50% are the culprits, right? So that's why we need always to test and check for the 50%. That's what is holding this price. So at the moment this price is trapped between a smaller short and a larger long. So likely the larger long is going to win. But before that can happen, we need to retest this 31.45 level. Okay, that was tested before, and it's going to come. It's going to likely come into play again because of this participation at the 50%. New Zealand dollar Swiss franc. This market has also tested support here, and we also had this previous measure move where price stopped at the first target. So being a range, we could be seeing the start of the next move higher into the top of the range. So that's what we could be seeing here in this market. Okay, so the next resistance is the level that has already traded. The 50%, 69 is the level that is likely going to be tested. And finally, New Zealand dollar Japanese yen. We see same behaviors in these markets that are all range bound, and so now that the bottom of the range has traded, the top of the range comes into play. The 50% here might not hold because of that, and so for this market, 78.74 could be the next level in play. Some of these markets have already started trading in extensions, as you can see here, and so you need to trace accordingly. All right, so this completes our full review here for today. Be safe. Don't rush. There's no need to do that. Wait for the good setups, especially those having support on the weekly and daily time frames. And I'll see you in the room. Bye bye now.